everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have some standalone romance recommendations to share with you. So I think I have a list of 8, and these are books that completely can be read as a standalone. These books, if you look them up on, say, Goodreads or Amazon, they may show that they are part of a series, but it's all of different characters and stuff like that, kind of set in the same world, and these are true. You can pick them up by themselves and you will not be missing anything with the characters or with the world. So like I said, I have 8 to share with you. Some of these I have talked about previously, especially last year. Some of these were some of my favorite books of the year, and some I just realized that I don't really talk about often, and I thought, well, they're standalone romances, so let's put them in a romance recommendations video. So the first book is not going to come as a surprise if you know me. I've been talking about it for quite a while, and that is A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. So I read this book last year and I fell in love with this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. Now I would say this book is not going to be for everyone because it is new adult. I think they're in their last year of high school, if I'm not mistaken. So this takes place at Lancaster Prep, which is like a school. And I will say that Prue and Wren have this very much kind of enemies to lovers, but the enemies doesn't really last that long. Like, he wants to not like her, but he can't help himself. And I think that Prue is probably one of the most romantic characters that I've ever read. I think that he shows his love in such unique ways, and I personally love this book. Like, I will say that if you're thinking they're 18 in this book, you're thinking, oh, it's not gonna have a lot of spice. There is. There's a lollipop scene. I'm like, what the fuck? That kind of made me blush. Like, thinking about it, I'm blushing a little bit. It honestly took me by surprise, and I was like, what is happening right now? What is happening right now, right? And I adored it. It's very long. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like their life, following their life. They are very rich. They both come from very rich families. But you see Wren and her family are kind of struggling, and Prue comes from this kind of like long family that has a ton of money and stuff like that. And I wish I could tell you more about this book, but I feel like if you just go into it knowing those things, you're gonna love it and fall in love with Prue and Wren's story. It is so beautiful and so romantic, and I just loved it so much. This is, I think, one of my first books by Monica Murphy, and I was not disappointed in the slightest. I loved this book so much, and I can tell why it has such high ratings. The next book I have is A Dance with the Fae Prince by Elise Kova. So this is actually a standalone fantasy romance, and while this is in her, I forgot what the series that she named it, Married to Magic. That's the series, but each book is a different couple, and it takes place in the same world, but you don't even see in this book, the first 2 characters from the first book is mentioned once in this book, and it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. It's just like, oh, what is that kingdom doing? And they're just like, oh, he probably doesn't even know what's going on. And then that's pretty much it. Now, out of the whole series, I've read the 3 that are out in this series so far. This is my favorite. I feel like this is, it just takes a little bit different turn than the other books. They're all pretty much enemies to lovers. And this one, it is very much enemies to lovers. But it's cool. They go from one world to the other, where they're she sees him in a different way, because he has kind of this, what I would call glamour, like a mask on and stuff like that. So, and she travels with them, and I just found it really, really intriguing to read this kind of short-ish fantasy romance. I mean, I feel like this is 400 pages. Yeah, it's less than 400 pages, just over 300, and you get such an intense story, an all-encompassing magic system, a fantasy world, romance story, kind of this found family aspect with him and his people that follow him, and I personally really loved it, and I thought it was a really good standalone fantasy romance that I would recommend to everyone. The next one is one of my top books of 2022, and it matches my little sweater perfectly, and that is 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. So this is my first book by this author. I absolutely adore Damien. I think he is such a beautiful book husband, book boyfriend, daddy AF, whatever you want to call him, okay? He's all of those things. This book really took me by surprise because it's a holiday romance, and I say that so don't feel like, okay, I have to wait till the end of the year to read it. It takes place between October, and it goes through November through December, so they do kind of holiday-y things. Don't let this cover fool you. This has some really good spice in it. I don't like cartoon characters because I feel like on the cover, because I feel like it kind of gives this thing where you're like, oh, they're just, that's not going to be spicy or steamy. No, it is. Basically, the whole point of this book is a revenge plot. Our female character, Abby, she is a pink person. She is the color pink personified, like how I am, okay? And her boyfriend breaks up with her on Halloween when she's trying to go to this company party, and she decides, okay, fine, screw this dude. He's trying to make partner at this law firm. I'm going to go for his boss. So she matches on an app with his boss, and they start going out. But then it's like, oh shit, I'm having feelings for him. But he's like 14 years older, and oh my God, I loved him so much. He builds her self-esteem up, and I loved this book. It was such a good time. You can read it as standalone. I would highly recommend it. I loved their romance. It went so quick when I read this. I did not want it to be over. 5-star read, so good. Highly, highly suggest the standalone. The next book I have is Eleanor Gray by Brittany C. Cherry. I read this because I did a collab with Nikki from Nikki and Bookland, and I was so blown away. I mean, I love Brittany C. Cherry's writing. I think she writes very, very well, but this book kind of took me by surprise. This is a little bit of a second chance. Would you call it second chance? Yeah. She is his nanny. She shows up to a nanny for these two girls. She finds out it is Grayson, who she knew when she was younger, and he has had his own life. He has had a wife, and they are not together anymore, and he has these two daughters that he's taking. I think it's 2, or is it 3? And I just love the gentleness of this book. While it talks about a lot of things, Brittany Cherry just can write with such gentleness. She writes a romance story, and I don't know how else to describe it besides that word. I just feel like it's easy to fall into her writing. It's easy to fall in love with her writing, fall in love with her characters, fall in love with her character's love story. It was just such a good, solid read, and I personally loved it, and I adored it. Eleanor and Gray have this very mature relationship now, and I loved that about it. I mean, I feel like Brittany Cherry, she does write a lot of things like that, and I think it works for her, and I love it. Now, I need to read Landon and Shay, because I've heard that one is really good, but that's a 2-part. I think it's a duet. So this is a standalone that you're introduced to Landon and Shay in this book, but you don't have to continue on with the story. You get the HEA in this story. You get a really good romance. You get a fantastic story with character growth as well, and I personally really enjoyed it. The next book I have is Fake Empire by M Farnsworth. So this is a book that I picked up because of Cheyenne at That Child Book Girl, and when I tell you I'm in love with this book, I really am. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think that the whole dynamic of this book between our two characters is something so unique that I'm constantly looking for, okay? So it follows these two characters. They both are equal in every single way. They both hold power. They both have money. They are literally part of the 2 most powerful families in the city, and they're forced into kind of this arranged marriage, but they're not mad about it because they know that anyone else that they try and get with or have a relationship with or get married to, it's always going to come down to the money issue and the power issue and all this stuff like that. But because they are totally equal, they won't have that problem. So I found that I just love the dynamic. I love that he was willing to bow down to her for certain things, and she was a little bit willing to bow down to him at certain things. I just thought the dynamic was perfect. It is a billionaire romance, so if that's not your thing, definitely stay away from this, but I personally loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and it's a standalone I would highly recommend. I'm so interested to read more by this author. I can't even tell you, I'm so interested. But the next book I have is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is the only traditionally published book I have on this list because when I read it, it actually took me by surprise. I gave this 4.5 stars. I did not know that this was an older woman, younger man. I didn't know that it was going to have such growth between the characters, between both of them, but also separately. There is not a miscommunication, but there is kind of this 3rd act breakup type of a thing that isn't always my favorite, but it made sense, and it was a very mature reason, and I just love the dynamic between the 2 characters that kind of grows from that. Our female character, she needs to get out of this relationship. She's a doctor, I think. She works in a hospital. Her boyfriend, I don't think they're fiancés or anything like that, but they're just living together. They've never been pushed to get married, but her parents are pushing for it. And when she goes to this super small town, she meets our main male character. He's a lot younger than she is, and he also is very mature for his age, so she is kind of drawn to him. They have this one night stand. It was great. And then she goes back home and she's like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Is this what it is? I am not happy with this. She's trying to break these toxic family ties and kind of just move forward and not care about what anyone is telling her, like not caring about other people's opinion or anything like that. And I personally loved it, and the story spoke to me, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't read already. But the next one I have is Resisting Mr. Granville by Sam Mariano. This is the one book I do not think is going to be for everyone as well. This is a very taboo, forbidden romance. Our female character is our main male character's ex-girlfriend's daughter. Yeah, so our female character, her mom was dating Mr. Granville, and they broke up. And she starts having a thing with him. But I will say her mom is a piece of shit. I'm going to be 100% honest. Her mom is awful. So when she has to kind of get out of the house, she goes to Mr. Granville's house. I forgot his name. But he has 2 kids. No, he has 3 kids. And one is off at college, and 2, I think, go to the same school as her. But I don't think they're in the same grade, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, okay, you guys know me. If you have read Credence, this has given me Credence vibes. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to throw this one in there as kind of like the bonus one. But if you've read Credence and you liked it, pick up this book. That's all I'll say. And we're going to move on from there. That one's a really quick one. But I don't know how else to describe it other than if you've read Credence, read it. I will say it's not the best book by Sam Mariano, but it is entertaining and I personally enjoyed it. But the last book I have is Requiem by Callie Hart. I've been talking about this book nonstop. This is one of my favorite books of 2022. This one I can't really tell you all that much, but it is, it has an amnesia aspect, and it's an amnesia aspect that I haven't been telling people, but I've kind of heard it go around this way. When I read it, I didn't know. So it was a very shock to me, but the way that the amnesia was done is something that I've never read before, and I personally enjoyed it. Basically, our female character, she goes to the school her name's Sorrel. She goes there to take down Theo, who's our main male character, because she is told that Theo is responsible for killing her best friend in a car accident. He was driving and it killed her best friend. So there's this whole enemies to lovers kind of revenge plot takedown aspect, and secrets start coming out when she meets Theo, and Theo's like, not everything is what you think. And I was like, oh my God, Theo is the ultimate, like, stick by your side book boyfriend, and I adored him, and everything that these characters go through is just heartbreaking, but absolutely absolutely love. So highly suggest that one too. But that is my standalone romance recommendations that I have to share with you. Leave me a purple heart emoji since Requiem is purple. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content for me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.